Hello and welcome to Everyone Dies, the podcast where we talk about serious illness, dying, death, and bereavement. I'm Marianne Matzo, a nurse practitioner, and I use my experience from working as a nurse for 47 years to help answer your questions about what happens at the end of life.
And I'm Charlie Navarrete, an actor in New York City, and here to offer an every-person viewpoint to our podcast. We're both here because we believe that the more you know, the better prepared you will be to make difficult decisions when a crisis hits. And also, this podcast does not provide medical nor legal advice. Please listen to the complete disclosure at the end of the recording.
Welcome to this week's show. So glad to have you join Charlie and me for the next hour as we talk about drowning. This podcast is a combination of education and entertainment. What we do is we give you our information in three halves. Our main topic is in the second half, so you can fast forward to that razzmatazz-free zone if you'd like. In the first half, Charlie has our recipe of the week and a piece about floating with grief. In the second half, I'm going to be talking about drowning. Drowning is the leading cause of death among children ages 1 to 4, and one of the 3 leading causes of accidental injury death among persons ages 5 to 34 years. In addition, deep racial disparities in drowning rates persist among all ages, with the highest among the American Indian, Alaska Native, and Black persons. In the third half, Charlie has steps you can take to help protect children from drowning. So, Charlie, have you ever known of a child who's drowned?
It's funny as you were saying that I have, but it was years ago. I think I was a kid, maybe not even a teenager yet, when I heard of someone drowning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was someone I knew or like a friend of a friend situation. But firsthand, no. What about you?
Yeah, I have, and it's really a horrific thing. And in the second half, I'll talk about that story and sort of the far-reaching consequences of having a child drown.
I can't imagine. Just a child dying, period. But nothing about drowning.
Yeah, because it can happen so fast. I mean, you hear, as a nurse, you hear every kind of horrific story if you haven't actually seen it. And, parents or caregivers will say, I turned my back for a second. I mean,
right,
that's
yes,
literally what
yeah.
everybody says. And that's all it takes. It's all it takes.
Yeah, just that whole thing, just with children in general, but I don't know, there's just something about drowning. Yeah, I just can't imagine. It's awful. For our first half, Everyone Dies heads out to Virginia this week as part of our summer road trip across the United States. Virginia was home to Charles Brown Fleet, CB to his friends, and is an American pharmacist and inventor of the enema and chapstick. I assume the chapstick came first. We are still trying to figure out how he is the father of these two products. His company, CB Fleet, was founded in Lynchburg, Virginia, and still operates producing laxatives, douches, and microenemas. But why rely on a Fleet's enema when Southern Virginia is known for everything peanuts, which are a great source of roughage? Fun fact, Virginia was the first colony in the United States to plant peanuts. Previously, they were a South American crop, but even today, Virginia is still one of the largest producers of peanuts. In fact, Suffolk, Virginia, dubs itself as the peanut capital of the world and is the home to Mr. Peanut himself.
That's where he lives.
Yes, where was I? Yes. So, it's only natural that our recipe of the week is peanut pie, which comes from the home of the best peanuts around.
Charlie, all through my nursing career, we used Fleet enema. And I just thought that was the kind of enema, like what was in it. I never knew that Fleet was a person until you just told me. Isn't that like so cool? There's a Mr. Fleet.
Oh, yes, I that is cool.
Yeah, and they still use Fleet's enema.
Okay, good. Now that we have that cleared up. Moving on. In a Psychology Today article, Learning to Float in Grief, Dr. Nancy Berns uses the story of her children learning to swim to make her point. Not everyone is comfortable with putting their head underwater. Until you get your head down, it is hard to swim or float. If your head comes out, your body goes down and you start to sink. When immersed and relaxed, you begin to realize that you will float, and over time, you start to appreciate freedom in the water. Dr. Berns states, it is similar in learning how to find joy in the midst of grief. Wade into the pain, like getting used to the cold, until you feel some warmth. Face the pain long enough to be able to look around and see that joy and life remain. You can learn to float while immersed in grief. Stephen Colbert notes that the interesting thing about grief, I think, is that it is its own size. It is not the size of you. It is its own size, and grief comes to you. You know what I mean? I've always liked that phrase. He was visited by grief, because that's really what it is. Grief is its own thing. It's not like it's in me and I'm going to deal with it. It's a thing, and you have to be okay with its presence. If you try to ignore it, it will be like a wolf at your door. Dr. Berns concludes her article by noting, we need to learn how to be comfortable in grief without drowning. Watch out for the undertow. Be careful about other people pulling you under. Learn your limits and know when to come up for air. Moments of laughter and joy help us catch our breath. Immersing ourselves in grief long enough to discover that we can float gives us more freedom to feel the joy and love that remain. And in both grief and water, it is best not to be alone. Please go to our webpage for this week's recipe for peanut pie and additional resources for this program. Everyone Dies is offered at no cost, but it's not free to produce. Can we count on you to contribute? Your tax-deductible gift will go directly to supporting our nonprofit journalism so that we can remain accessible to everyone. You can also donate at www.everyonedies.org. That's every, the number one, dies.org, or at our site on Patreon under Everyone Dies. Marianne?
Thanks, Charlie. Anyone can drown at any age. An estimated 4,000 fatal unintentional drownings happen every year in the United States, an average of 11 drowning deaths per day, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Drowning is the leading cause of death in children ages 1 to 4, and after motor vehicle accidents, it is the second leading cause of death attributed to unintentional injuries among kids ages 5 to 14. For this reason, I'm going to focus today on preventing deaths by drowning for children. A 2024 CDC reported higher rates of drowning deaths among individuals identified as non-Hispanic American Indian or Alaska Native and as non-Hispanic Black or African American. Only 45% of all adults reported having had swim lessons, and those numbers were higher among white Americans, 52%, than among Black, 37%, and Hispanic Americans, 28%. Racial disparities were also noted in a 2023 analysis from the Consumer Product Safety Commission, the SPSC, which found that African American children made up 21% of all drownings for kids younger than age 15, in which race and ethnicity are known. Among kids ages 5 to 14, 45% of drowning deaths occurred among African Americans. Now, 80% of drownings in kids happen in home swimming pools. Of these residential drownings, 91% occurred among kids younger than age 7. CPSC found that nearly 70% of the children were not expected to be at or in the pool, yet they were found in the water. In fact, 46% of the children were last seen in the house. Most children drowned when they wandered out of the house and fell into a swimming pool that was not fenced off from the house. They slipped out a door, climbed out a window, or even crawled through a doggy door to access the pool. Many public beaches and community pools hire lifeguards whose job it is to watch out for the safety of everyone in or near the water. Private pools in people's yards often don't have someone designated for this purpose. Sometimes older children are supervising younger children, but aren't always watching. Or adults may be supervising, but they are also busy with other tasks. Also, some of those watching others may not know how to swim themselves or are unfamiliar with what to do when they find a child drowning in a pool. There may also be a false sense of security in residential settings. People may think the pool is small or not that deep, or there are a lot of people around. We need to remember that you can drown in just inches of water. Serious injury or death can happen within 30 seconds. Drownings are often silent because the victim is unable to call out for help. More than a quarter, 27% of drownings among children age 4 and under, took place at the home of a friend, relative, or neighbor. Only some individual states and municipalities have laws requiring pool safety fences. There is no national pool fence law. Whenever your child will be in someone else's home, always check for ways your child could access pools and other potential hazards. Charlie's going to give a list of specific actions to prevent drowning, but I want to go over a few specific things for your consideration. Drowning is considered a preventable death. Prevention is the most important contributor to reduce drowning mortality and morbidity. A common reaction to a drowning is, I only turn my back for a second, and that's all it takes for a child to access the water and drown. And the best prevention is supervision of a child if water is around. What I mean here is literally never take your eyes off the kids if they can access a pool. If you have a child, or even a dog pool, empty it out after swimming. I know this is a pain, because as soon as you empty it, they're going to want to swim again. It's just too easy for a moment of distraction to turn into a disaster. Even if a child knows how to swim, even if they're wearing a flotation device, even if the pool is shallow or small, an accident can occur, and neither you or another responsible adult should always be able to see your child. The supervising adult should be actively watching the child and not distracted by chores or their smartphone. That person should also not be under the influence of alcohol or drugs. He must also know how to swim well enough so that they're able to jump in the pool and save the child if necessary. An additional safety precaution is learning CPR and first aid for infants, children, and adults, which you can do through the American Red Cross. If you have a pool, be very careful before allowing others to use it. If your neighbor's children want to swim in your pool, a responsible adult must accompany them. Private swimming pools should have child-proof fencing around them. The fencing should enclose the pool, have a self-closed latch out of reach of the children, and be at least 4 foot high. Kids aged 1 to 4 who took part in formal swimming lessons had an 88% lower risk of drowning, according to the study in JAMA Pediatrics. The goal is basic life-saving skills such as treading water and floating on their back. Other things to reinforce with kids are never swimming alone, always asking for permission before heading toward the water, and never diving into unknown bodies of water head first. Young children should also be reminded not to reach for items in the pool, as they are risk for falling in, and they should always ask for help instead. And this brings me to a story of personal drowning in our family. A child who just had his second birthday was at a neighborhood pool, and his mother was there, a neighbor was there, the neighbor's child was there. So there were 3 children, the 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and I don't know how old the neighbor's kid was. And the mother of the child who drowned said to her friend, listen, I have to run up to the house really quick. Will you watch the kids? And at that time, the kids had flotation devices on. So she runs up to do what she's going to do, and the other mother's watching the kids, and the kids say they want to fill their squirt gun things in, there's a shower there, and play in the shower. And they ask her if she'd take off their flotation devices, and she says, sure. She takes off their flotation devices. I'm not sure where she goes, and the kids are filling their things. And but the next thing we know is the 2-year-old can't be found, and then he's at the bottom of the pool. And though they tried resuscitation, he died. And his 4-year-old brother tells the story about what happened, how he was leaning in the pool to fill his squirt gun, fell in, and then was gone. So the trauma in this family is the 2-year-old is dead, the 4-year-old watched it, the neighbor who took off the flotation devices, I can't even begin to imagine her grief and guilt. And it just was horrific for everybody involved. And so it's, you think it's just a regular day at the pool and that people are paying attention and that you trust the person that you say, listen, I'm just going to run to the bathroom, I'm just going to run up to the house, will you watch the kids? And then disaster can strike. And so when I talk about being vigilant, you have to be vigilant. And I'm not saying this so that if you've had a child who's drowned that you say, oh my God, it's all my fault. I'm saying this in the hopes that maybe we can prevent some deaths this summer because we say to ourselves, no, I have to not, I have to pay real attention. Now, when my kids were growing up, we lived on a lake in New Hampshire, and we were right on this lake. And I had very strict rules about the water. And I knew that kids really can't be trusted to buy by them. So their father and I had a water watcher job that we passed back and forth. The water watcher's job is to watch all children swimming or playing in or near the water, which in our case is if the kids ever went outside because the lake was right there. And so if the kids are outside, and even if they know how to swim, the water watcher, should not be under the influence of drug or alcohol, put down his or her cell phone, avoid other activities, supervise even if there's lifeguards around, and switch off with another adult for breaks. And what we would do is get the other person's attention and actually do a handoff and say, I'm going here, you're on water watch, and have them say, yes, I hear you, I'm on water watch, because you want to make sure that somebody's watching them. Now, it's easy to let yourself slack off, given all the competing tasks of living, but you and your partner need to agree that this is important for your children to survive and not make compromises. And we had a dock with a boat. Kids couldn't be, if they put a foot on the dock, they had to have life vests on because they would want to fish off the dock. And it was just like, don't even mess with me. These are the rules for where we live. And also, if I called the kids, they had to answer. And that was also a rule, too. Because if they didn't answer, I would panic. So I would, check and say, call their names and say, "Are you there?" And they'd have to answer. So being vigilant, and it's hard when you're living on open water that's not fenced in, but that's what we need to do if you choose to have water in your backyard. Preventing drowning requires multiple layers of protection. To be effective, drowning prevention must be used by individuals near, on, or around the water, and those who supervise or care for others in water settings. This is why a drowning chain of survival is an important drowning prevention tool for individuals in their community. This is a 5-step model. It's research-based drowning prevention model and a call to action to know how to respond when a drowning incident occurs. The steps of the chain are: 1, prevent drowning; 2, recognize distress; 3, provide flotation; 4, remove from water; and 5, provide care as needed. So, let's go over these steps in detail. So 1 is prevent drowning by staying within arm's reach of children when or near the water, swim in water-safe areas where there are lifeguards, 4-sided fencing around pools or spas, and always wear a life jacket when using watercraft, boat, kayak, etc. And I know from experience that children get to an age and they say, "I don't need a life jacket anymore when I'm on the boat." And you just, it's part of that parenting thing. It's just like, you do until I say you don't. And, and you can just tell them if you don't want to wear your life jacket, you won't go on the boat. And I've had kids, who are visiting my kids who's like, "Well, my mom doesn't make me wear a life jacket. I don't want to wear it." And I'd say, "Well, that's between you and your mom, but if you're going to go out on the boat with us, you need to wear a life jacket, and it's up to you if you're going to go or not." And I think that when they know that you're serious, they kind of don't mess with you anymore. So, and also part of the life jacket is learn how to swim and water safety survival skills. So the second step is recognizing distress. Recognizing elements of a person at high risk of drowning include near vertical body position, ineffective downward arm movements, ineffective pedaling or kicking leg actions, and little or no forward progress in water. So you need to recognize early drowning victims' distress signs. Victims may not wave or call for help. They kind of get focused on, "I need to start swimming and save my life," and they don't think to do that. But if you see somebody struggling, you need to tell someone to call for help, and you stay on the scene to provide assistance to the person who's drowning. Watch where the victim is in the water or ask a bystander to keep constant watch. The third step is provide flotation to prevent submersion. Most rescuers tend to focus on getting the victim out of the water, even if there is a high threat to life rescuer safety. Devices such as ring buoys or life buoys are purpose designed to provide flotation. However, they're not always available at the scene of a drowning accident. Therefore, improvised buoyancy aids such as empty plastic bottles, containers, body boards, surfboards, drift boards, ice chests, anything that floats, you can throw to them to hold on to. It's critical that you take precautions not to become another victim by engaging in inappropriate or dangerous behaviors. Given the number of bystanders who drown while attempting to rescue others, reaching out with, throwing, or dropping the buoyancy aid without entering the water is the safest course of action. There was just recently, I saw on the news, a woman who was trying to save her dog from drowning, and she drowned herself. And actually, dogs will figure out how to get themselves back to shore. And so you need to kind of stay present with what the facts are and not sort of emotionally say, "Oh, my dog's not going to make it back." And that, dogs will. Kids, no, but dogs will. So the fourth step is to remove from water only if it's safe to do so. So strategies to get the person who's drowning out of the water. You can assist the victim to get out of the water by giving directions, like pointing to the nearest or closest safest place to get out. Attempt to remove the victim without fully entering the water by utilizing rescue techniques such as reaching, throating, or wading out with equipment. If all else fails, the rescuer may consider entering the water. The entry of an untrained person into the water to rescue someone is extremely dangerous, and it's not recommended. In order to lower the risk, a rescuer must bring a source of flotation so that you can assist the victim. And the last phase is provide care as needed. Seek medical attention. If the person's not breathing, start CPR, ventilations and compressions immediately. Initial ventilations may be ineffective in drowning because of water in the upper airway. Airway management is always challenging due to vomiting, regurgitation, and the fluid that is commonly present in the upper airway. Also unique to drowning is that the most common rhythm in cardiac arrest following drowning is asystole, meaning the heart just stops. Consider using oxygen and an automated external defibrillator as soon as possible if it's available. If breathing, stay with the victim until help arrives. And seek medical aid or hospital if any symptoms are present, and for all victims who require resuscitation. So, summer is here. Please stay safe and aware. Enjoy your summers at the lake and at the pool, and everybody comes home healthy. Charlie, you have some other ways to help people keep safe in the water?
No, I got nothing to add. But I do what you had said before about, I remember your house on the lake and the time Michael and I visited. I still remember this. You were very clear about these are the rules. It was like, 3 or 4 bullet points, but they were very clear. There was nothing to negotiate. And it's just that, just you as, not you personally, but, a person as, I don't know, a parent, a friend, or the person responsible for, hey, watch the kids. I need to go in and get a pitcher of lemonade. Watch the kids. I mean, just making it very, very clear that, you're not to be on your text can wait 5 minutes. You can't be distracted because, as you said, just the smallest thing can happen so quickly. So, yeah, just to set the ground rules. And I still remember you doing that. Just set the ground rules at the start. And that's it. There's no discussion. So that.
Yeah. I was always very adamant.
Oh, no, I remember. Absolutely. And you have to be. Because it's like you said, literally in the blink of an eye, somebody can drown. And people are just so easily distracted nowadays, with, phones and, all that sort of stuff. It's more difficult now from what I've seen, for people to focus. But yeah, this is your kid or someone else's kid, and you have to, you have to focus. I mean, that's what counts the most. For our third half, I have some actions you can take to help keep your friends and family safe while enjoying the summer near water. Number 1, teach your kids to swim. Swimming is fun, but more importantly, it's a life-saving skill. It's essential that children be comfortable swimming or, at the very least, treading water. But with young children and toddlers, it's still important to supervise them when they're in the water. Don't assume they are safe alone, even if they can swim. Number 2, keep watch over little swimmers at all times. At least one adult should have eyes on the water 100% of the time. If you have to take a phone call or go to the bathroom, designate another adult to be in charge of the swimmers, Or have the child come out and stay somewhere safe with no access to the water until you can pay attention again, particularly at a pool. Walk around periodically so you can change your view because the water refracts light and may prevent you from seeing pool corners and edges. Also, when shopping for swimsuits, choose bright colors like neon orange, green, pink, and red to make it easier to spot your child in the water. Avoid blues and greens because they blend in with the water. Number 3, know the risks of open water. In open water, the undertow can be dangerous. Whenever there's an option, choose a beach that has a lifeguard on duty. If you bring your child to a beach without a lifeguard, have a second adult on hand to help in case of an emergency. Look out for colored flags at the beach and know the hazard levels that the colors signify. Number 4, don't rely solely on floaties and puddle jumper life jackets. Puddle jumpers, unlike life jackets and swim vests, are designed with arm floats connected to a chest float, providing buoyancy to your child's head, chest, and arms. Puddle jackets are best suited for supervised pool play because they may not turn your child face up in the water like some life jackets do. They're easy to put on, with your child simply slipping their arms through the floats and buckling the device in the back. Arm floaties can provide a false sense of security, both for young swimmers who may think they have stronger swimming abilities than they do, and for adults who think they will keep the child afloat. Since the swim gear can be unreliable, it can pop or come off a child, it should not be considered a substitute for supervision or swim lessons. A safer option is a U.S. Coast Guard approved life jacket, which has multiple fasteners for secure fit. Number 5, be on guard for silence as well as flailing. Children should be loud by the pool when they're having fun. If you can't hear them, check on them right away. Remember that when people encounter trouble in the water, they may not be able to scream for help. Look out for arms and flailing as signs of distress. Number 6, take breaks. Kids shouldn't be in the pool or ocean for hours at a time. A good rule of thumb is no more than 30 minutes in the water for toddlers and about an hour for older kids so they can rest, get some shade, and drink some water with electrolytes. Sometimes kids, especially little ones, gulp down too much pool water, which can be a health risk. Pool water does not contain electrolytes like salt, potassium, and calcium, so on hot summer days, kids who spend hours in the pool can end up with abnormal electrolyte levels. When your child comes out of the water, it's also a good time to reapply sunscreen to avoid sunburns. There is no such thing as waterproof sunscreen, and even those labeled water resistant will wash off. Number 7, install a secure fence around pools. If you have a pool in your backyard, installing a fence around the pool is critical so that kids can't wander in and out of the pool area too easily. Your fence should be at least 4 feet high, have a lock, and be childproof. But a fence may not be entirely effective at keeping teens safe, so consider installing cameras by the pool. Not only will this help you keep an eye on them, but also if your teens know you are watching, it may encourage them to follow water safety rules. Electric pool covers are useful, but because they require power, they can be unreliable. Number 8, dive with caution. Know the depth of the water before your kid dives in. They should be diving into water that is at least 9 feet deep, and be aware that they can bump their head on the diving board when they jump. Number 9, be careful around pool drains. If a pool drain is not installed correctly, the suction can be so powerful that it holds the child at the bottom. Kids can also get their hair or jewelry stuck, So it's best to tie their hair back and take off jewelry before swimming. Number 10. If you hear thunder, get out of the water. It may seem obvious, but at the first sound of thunder, lightning will follow. Water conducts electricity, so lightning is more likely to strike water than land. If there's a thunderstorm, get indoors and hold off on swimming again until at least a half hour after the storm passes. Number 11. Check the water first. If a child is missing, look for them in the pool or spa first. Looking here first will start CPR earlier. And number 11, learn CPR. Parents, caregivers, and pool owners should know CPR and how to get emergency help. Your CPR skills could save someone's life in the time it takes for paramedics to arrive. Many organizations, such as the American Red Cross and American Heart Association, offer CPR training courses, both online and in person. See the show notes for more information. And that wraps up this week's episode. Please stay tuned for the continuing saga of Everyone Dies. And thank you for listening. This is Charlie Navarrete. When asked, what happens when we die? Actress Ann Dowd responded, our next life.
And I'm Marianne Matzo, and we'll see you next week. Remember, every day is a gift.
This podcast does not provide medical advice. All discussion on this podcast, such as treatments, dosages, outcomes, charts, patient profiles, advice, messages, and any other discussion are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your primary care practitioner or other qualified health providers with any questions that you may have regarding your health. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard from this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. Everyone Dies does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, practitioners, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in this podcast. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast by persons appearing on this podcast at the invitation of Everyone Dies or by other members is solely at your own risk.